There will be no wedding, but the curtain is only going up. The Facebook chime hit at 2:47 a.m., and I was already flat on my back, studying the ceiling, wondering why my fiancée Nora still wasn't home. The Bachelorette was supposed to have wrapped hours ago. I thumbed the phone, expecting a goofy text or a smeared selfie with her crew. What I got blew the heat out of my chest. A photo. Nora, the woman I'd promised forever, parked on a stranger's lap at Dalton's on Main. Her arms were looped around his neck, her cheeks flushed with liquor, and something I didn't want to name. His face was half-turned, but there was enough to read his type. Pricey shirt. Confident smile. A man who acted like rooms belonged to him. The caption said, "Last night of freedom. Thanks, girls, for the wildest bachelorette ever. No regrets. Last night single." My hands shook while I scrolled the comments. Her friends howled and threw fire emojis. "Get it, girl." Maya, her maid of honor, had written, "What happens at a bachelorette stays at a bachelorette." Oops! I stared at the picture for 10 minutes, while 8 years of shared plans rattled like dishes in a cabinet. Houses, kids, growing old side by side. This is how she toasted it. Without thinking, I screenshotted the post and put it on my own page with a simple line. First night of freedom, actually. I flipped my status to single and tagged the people who mattered, including her father, Martin Keene, the stiffest insurance executive in all of Burlington, Vermont. Then I waited. The reaction detonated. Notifications rolled over the screen, comments burst, messages stacked. Friends, family, co-workers. Some took my side, some gasped, most craned their necks for more. At 3:15 a.m., I heard tires in the drive. Nora blew in like a hurricane, face knotted with fury. She still had on the black dress from the night, makeup smeared into raccoon shadows. She didn't look like the poised operator from the Keene Mutual office. She looked mean and wrecked. "What is wrong with you, Cal?" she screamed, waving her phone. "Are you out of your mind?" I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open, watching the fire I'd lit tear across Pine Haven's feeds. Our town lives on gossip, and I'd just given it a holiday. What's wrong with me? I stood up. 38 years and a decade of service had taught me to leash my temper. Tonight, the leash was threadbare. I'm not the one grinding on a stranger at my bachelorette. It was a joke. Her purse hit the counter. "You're so insecure." It was harmless. Harmless? I spun the laptop and tapped the screen. "This reads harmless to you?" She glanced and went pale for a beat. Defiance rushed back. "You don't trust me after 8 years. That says everything about you." "Who is he?" "Nobody. Some random at the bar. Maya dared me to take a picture. It meant nothing." Her eyes flicked aside. Her fingers trembled. I've met enough liars to know the tics. The phone rang. Martin Keene. "Answer!" Nora hissed. I put it on speaker. "Hello, Mr. Keene. Cal Mercer." His voice was refrigerator cold. "What on earth is going on? I'm getting calls from half the city about some social nonsense." "Ask your daughter," I said. "Nora, explain." She snatched the phone. "Dad, it's nothing. Cal is having a breakdown. The photo was a silly joke." "A joke that's been shared 300 times, I added. "The Channel 5 page just picked it up." Nora's face drained. "What?" I refreshed the feed. "Local groom calls off wedding after viral bachelorette photo. Congratulations." Her jaw worked. "You're insane," she shouted. "You're ruining everything over nothing." "I'm ruining everything?" I laughed without humor. "I'm not the one riding a stranger 3 days before our ceremony." Martin cut in. "Enough. Nora, come home. We will discuss this like adults." She left. I stayed at the table and watched the story mushroom. High school friends commented. Guys I'd served with weighed in. Even Mrs. Llewellyn from next door figured out how to react with a row of stunned faces. When the adrenaline ebbed, a small sour certainty settled. Nora's outrage was too sharp, too rehearsed, and the man in the image tugged at recognition. I was going to find him. The morning delivered a parade of calls, texts, and surprise visitors. At 7, Mrs. Llewellyn knocked with a casserole and sharp curiosity. "Such a shame," she said, breezing into my kitchen. "Though I always wondered about that girl. Too ambitious. And those late nights." "Late nights?" "Always working late," or so she said. Between us, I saw her car pull out at 5:30 most days, then cruise back around 9 or 10. Odd hours for overtime, wouldn't you say? I filed it away and dialed my best friend, Mike, who managed Kearney's bar downtown. If anyone knew the current of town gossip, it was Mike. "Dude, you blew up the internet," he said. "Half of Pinehaven is talking. The other half is making memes. I need a favor. Lunch? I'll clear a stool." We met at Kearney's during the slow shift. He poured a beer and slid wings across. "What's the real story?" I showed him the photo. "Look hard at the guy." Mike leaned in. His eyes went wide. "That's Gavin Royce, isn't it?" "Who?" "Regional manager at Keene Mutual. Martin's show pony. BMW, cufflinks, the works. Thinks the sun checks with him before it rises. He brings clients in here." He lowered his voice. "If Nora is wrapped up with Gavin, you're dealing with more than a bar mistake. That's her boss's boss." The pieces began to lock. The late nights, the wild defensiveness, the panic when I posted. This wasn't a drunken dare. I needed proof. "I'm going to look into it," I said. Mike nodded. "I'm in. Also, your post cost Gavin serious face. Word is Martin dragged him in this morning. The whole company is humming." That afternoon, I parked across from Nora's building. At 5:30, just like the neighbor said, Nora walked out. She didn't head home. She drove downtown to Harborview Residences, the pricey waterfront complex. I watched her slip into Building C like muscle memory. 20 minutes later, she came out with a tall man in a perfect suit. Even from the distance, I knew that profile. Gavin. They got into his BMW and left together. I sat in my truck and let the truth arrange itself. This wasn't an accident. It was an affair. Back home, I called an old army buddy. Hector Ruiz ran a private security outfit in Providence now. "I need help," I told him. "What kind?" "Your kind. Research, surveillance. The creative sort." He laughed. "Who's in trouble?" I told him about the photo, the office, the apartment, the man. "So you want depth and duration," he said. "Everything," I answered. "How long, what they're planning, the works. Give me a little time." The next morning the doorbell rang again. Maya stood on the stoop, wringing her hands. "We need to talk." I let her in. "I feel terrible," she said. "The photo spiraled." Did it spiral, or did it just peel the paint off what was already there? She looked down. "I don't know what you mean." "Gavin, how long?" Tears welled. "I promised I wouldn't say." "I saw them together. I know about the apartment. The question is whether you help me understand or keep lying for her." Maya started to cry. Mascara tracked down her cheeks. 6 months, she whispered. "It started at the company retreat. She said it was just physical. She said she loved you and needed excitement. She made me promise." "And that was fine with you?" "I thought it would burn out. I thought she'd get it out of her system and marry you. Then she talked about calling off the wedding, and I panicked. I thought one wild night would snap her out of it. When he showed up at the bar, she lit up like a tree. That's when I knew she was in love." The betrayal landed like a body shot. Not just the cheating, but the planning, the lies threaded through cake tastings and seating charts. "There's more," Maya said. "Gavin keeps promising to leave his wife. He says once he gets promoted to VP, he'll have the money to make a clean break. Nora thinks they're going to run away." "He's married," I said. 15 years. 2 kids at St. Francis. She knows. She says she's different." After she left, I sat in my garage with the smell of sawdust and oil and drew up the next moves. For 8 years, I'd been the reliable one. The man who fixed leaks, who showed up, who kept quiet. They mistook quiet for surrender. They were wrong. Hector called at 6 on Friday. "Your fiancé has been busy," he said. "I've got hotel receipts, card trails, and a mountain of messages. Want the highlights?" All of them. Twice a week, 6 months, Riverlight Inn. He pays in cash. She buys dinners and gifts and silk on her card. She isn't careful. The messages are the good part. He's stringing her along with promotion talk, divorce talk, the storybook. I pulled his finances. The guy is leveraged to the rafters. Big mortgage, tuition, club dues. He's not leaving anyone. Does Nora know? Judging by her texts, she thinks she'll move in with him after you officially call it off. She's already browsing apartments. The cut went deeper with every detail. While I planned a future, she mapped an exit. "There's more," Hector said. "Gavin has a pattern at work. Not his first side romance. He promises, strings along, vanishes when it gets hot." "Send it all," I said. "What's your play?" "I'm going to deliver exactly what they purchased." That night I slid onto a stool at Kearney's. Packed Friday crowd. Mike set a beer in front of me. "You look like cement," he said. "Feel worse. But I've got a plan." I laid out Hector's work. Mike's jaw tightened. "So what now?" "A conversation with Gavin." "Smart?" "I'm not threatening. I'm clarifying." At 9, I parked at Harborview and waited. The BMW appeared, glossy and smug. Gavin headed for Building C. "Gavin Royce," I called. He turned, narrowing his eyes. "Who's asking?" "Cal Mercer. I think you know the name." Color drained, and then he pasted on calm. "If this is a bow—" "I'm not sure what you think you're doing," he said. "Spelling it out," I answered. "You end this with Nora tonight. You keep your distance. You stop feeding her nonsense about promotions and divorce." "You don't get to dictate my life," he said, but his feet edged toward the BMW. "I'm informing you," I said. "There's a difference. I know about your wife. I know about your kids. I know the leverage on your house and the club dues you pretend not to care about. I know you've run this exact play with other women, including ones who worked for you. And I know Martin Keene loves the company's image more than any employee." His throat worked. "You're threatening me." I held up my phone. A drafted email sat open. Attachments glittered as icons. Photos from Harborview. Receipts from Riverlight Inn. Message screenshots. One tap sends this to Martin, to your wife, and to half the city's gossip pages. "You're bluffing!" I tapped send. He lunged. I slid aside, caught his wrist, turned the joint until his knees buckled, then let him go before he face-planted on the asphalt. "Free advice," I said. "Don't build bonfires in other people's houses and act shocked when something burns." I walked to my truck and left him glaring at the taillights. The phone started to riot before I cleared Harborview. Nora, Martin. Unknown numbers. I let them ring. By morning there was a new storm. Someone had filmed the parking lot encounter from a balcony and posted it. The comments were a mix of cheers and shrieks. Local handyman checks arrogant exec. About time. Others called me a bully. It didn't matter. The truth was moving. At 10, Nora arrived looking wrecked, hair unbrushed, eyes red. "You destroyed everything," she spat the second I cracked the door. "I destroyed everything," I said. "Gavin lost his job? Tragic." "Martin fired him this morning," she said. "You cost him his career." "Good," I said. "How can you be this cruel? We love each other." I laughed. Love is not a twice-a-week cash room at the Riverlight. Ask him about Jenna Moore or Sarah Chow. Ask how special they felt when he stopped returning messages. You're lying. "When is the last time he answered you?" I asked. She swiped her phone awake and scrolled, her face sinking as the silence stared back. "He's figuring out his next steps," she said, but the conviction drained out of the words. "He's figuring out how to keep his household intact. You don't understand what we have." "I understand perfectly," I said. 6 months of hotel rooms and stories. It's over." She stared at me, and I watched the moment she realized rescue wasn't coming. He was not leaving anyone. He was not calling. "I hate you," she whispered. "That's fine," I said. "You will hate the mirror more." After she left, Mike called. "How does it feel to be Pinehaven's most talked about man?" he asked. "Like this is only the middle," I said. The week that followed dropped consequences like stones into a lake. Gavin vanished. Word said his wife threw him out. Rumor said he was holed up at a motel on Route 7 and talking to recruiters in other states. Nora moved back with Martin, and the Keene house turned into a bunker. My social circle did not react like heroes. It began with Dave Monroe and his wife Jenna. Yes, the same Jenna who had history with Gavin 2 years back. We had done weekends and barbecues, holidays and hand-me-downs. Dave called on Thursday. "We need to talk," he said, voice like winter. "About what?" I said. "About what you did to Gavin and Nora." "What I did?" I repeated. "Don't play dumb, Cal. You crushed 2 lives over a stupid picture." "You do remember Gavin was sleeping with my fiancée," I said. "And that he once did similar to your wife." "That's different," he snapped. "Jenna and I worked through our mess. We are stronger now." "So I should have smiled, married Nora, and pretended." "You should have handled it privately, like a grown man. Instead, you turned it into a circus." We slid downhill from there. He called me vindictive. I told him selective memory was a disease. We hung up with words we couldn't take back. He was not alone. Tom and Susan Branson chimed in. Marcus and Kara Chan chimed in. Others from game nights chimed in. The message was coordinated and clear. I had gone too far. I was the villain. It didn't feel spontaneous. It felt like rehearsal. Saturday night, I sat with Mike at Kearney's nursing a beer when Dave walked in with Tom and Marcus. They spotted me and headed straight over. "Look who's here," Dave sang, loud enough for half the bar. "Our celebrity." "Don't do this," I said. "Why not?" he said. "You didn't mind going public." Tom stepped closer. "You know what you are, Cal. Bitter, small. Your woman found someone better." The room went quiet. Phones turned. "Someone better," I repeated. "A married manager who used her while lying about leaving his wife." "At least Gavin treated her like a queen," Marcus said. "When's the last time you took Nora somewhere decent? Flowers? Jewelry? You ever make her feel special?" "I was saving for the wedding," I said. "The wedding she planned to skip." "Because you're boring," Dave said. "You're a small-town handyman with no ambition or class. Nora deserved more than fixing pipes forever." The words hit like thrown stones. These were men who had eaten my food and borrowed my tools. "You know what's truly pathetic," Tom said. "That you burned down everyone else's happiness because you can't keep your own house." Mike stepped between us. "That's enough." "Stay out of it," Dave snapped. "This is between us and your friend." Something inside me clicked. Weeks of humiliation, then this. Friends defending lies. "You want pathetic," I said quietly. 3 grown men ganging up because they're too scared to admit their own roofs leak. "What did you say?" Marcus said. "You heard me," I said. "Jenna cheated with Gavin. Maybe others in this room have similar secrets." Dave swung. It was wild and slow. I slid, came up with an uppercut to the solar plexus. He folded. Tom grabbed a bottle. Mike drove him to the floor before he could use it. Marcus tried to angle behind me, but a hard elbow found his ribs, and he stumbled into a table. 30 seconds, and it was done. The damage was larger than bruises. Bridges burned to ash. "Out," Mike told them while they collected themselves. "All of you." Limping toward the door, Dave turned. "This isn't over. People will know what you are." "They already do," I said. "I am the man who fights back." The room slowly relearned its chatter, but the staring eyes didn't stop. Some faces held approval. Some held fear. I told Mike I was fine. I wasn't. I had lost my fiancée, my so-called friends, and half my reputation in a town where stories outrun cars. The wise move would have been to go quiet, let the waves settle, maybe move zip codes. Wisdom was not steering. By dawn Monday, the bar video was online. Grainy, loud, unmistakable. Comments split like firewood. Hero, thug, protector, problem. The Pinehaven groups flamed. Then Hector called. "You've been busy," he said. "So have you," I said. "I have something about your friends," he said. "Like what?" Like this was planned. Since the Gavin reveal, they've been meeting at Dave's. They coordinated posts and calls. I can see the pattern in timestamps and phrasing. They're isolating you. They want you labeled unstable while they pose as rational. Cold seeped in. "Why?" I asked. "Because you made them look bad," Hector said. "When you dragged Gavin and Nora into daylight, you also made it obvious they knew and said nothing. They're covering themselves by painting you black. There's more. Dave's been in contact with Nora. They're setting up a public scene this weekend." "Where?" "The Harvest Fair," he said. "Crowds, cameras, perfect to push you into a mistake." Pinehaven's Harvest Fair is the biggest thing on the calendar. Tents, food trucks, a tiny stage for bands, half the county wandering around with cider. "What else?" I said. "I dug where you told me," Hector said. "Tom is sleeping with his assistant and has been for 8 months. Marcus has been siphoning money from his construction outfit to pay off gambling markers. Dave is buying more than a little weed in the city. He is up to his eyes in pills and powders. I have texts, transfers, calls, photos." "You can prove it," I said. "I can package it," he said. "Send everything," I said. "What's the plan?" he asked. "Their plan turned inside out," I said, "in the place they chose." Saturday arrived drizzly and gray, October doing what it does. The square was lined with food and craft tents. The small stage sat at the center with a vinyl roof to keep the equipment dry, people packed under umbrellas, steam lifting from cups. I came at noon in jeans and flannel and a calm that felt like armor. Dave stood near the cider tent with Tom and Marcus. They were scanning faces. Off to the side, Nora chatted with coworkers and stole glances at the trio. Everyone was present. Perfect. I walked to the stage as a local band wound down a song. The organizer, Betty Walsh, stood nearby with a clipboard. "Betty," I said, "could I borrow the mic for a minute?" "Of course, honey," she said. "Announcement?" "Something like that," I said. I stepped up and tapped the mic. The tented sound carried. Conversations thinned. "May I have your attention?" I said. "For those who don't know me, I'm Cal Mercer. I grew up here. I fix what's broken. I've tried to treat people with honesty and respect." The square quieted. The rain tapped the vinyl like impatient fingers. "Lately, some folks have been calling me unstable and violent and childish because I refuse to swallow a lie," I said. "I thought we'd check facts in public." I connected my phone to the small mixer. First recording is Dave Monroe arranging a purchase in Burlington last month. Dave's voice spilled out of the speakers, discussing prices, quantities, a standing order. Murmurs rolled through the bodies. Dave went white and tried to push forward, but the crowd was a net. Second is Tom Branson, talking to his assistant about hotel rooms and cover stories. Tom's voice laughed about schedules, about what Susan didn't know. Out in the cluster, I saw Susan Branson's face carve into anger. Third is Marcus Chan, explaining how to skim a little from job accounts to keep certain gentlemen patient. Marcus's voice was lazy with arrogance. The sound of the square changed. Phones rose. Heads turned. People called friends to get over here now. "These are the men who called me unhinged," I said into the microphone. "These are the men who scolded me for speaking plainly about betrayal. I'll let you decide who needs a mirror." I pulled the cable and stepped down. The trio finally reached the front. Rage and panic battled on their faces. "You piece of trash!" Dave shouted and lunged. I sidestepped and sent him into the stage. He bounced and slid to the wet grass. Tom rushed me, leading with his hands. I caught his wrist and turned his weight. He hit and stayed down. Marcus did not charge blindly. He produced a knife, The crowd shrieked and peeled back. He slashed toward my torso. I grabbed a folding chair, caught the blade in the slats, twisted. The knife stuck. While he yanked, I swung the chair like a gate and clipped his temple. He sagged. 90 seconds. It felt longer. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then applause cracked like thunder. It rolled from one side to the other. People cheered. Some shouted that this was how you answer bullies. Cameras drank it in. I looked toward the cider tent and found Nora. She stared like she had finally seen me, not the version she'd written. Fear edged her eyes. I walked to her. The crowd parted in a hush. "Hello, Nora," I said. "Cal, please," she whispered. "I have something for you," I said, and handed her an envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were photos and printouts. "Those are Gavin with his wife and kids at a theme park last weekend," I said. "Also a lease for a house in Florida. He didn't lose everything. He got moved. He took his family with him." Her face broke as the images told a story she refused to read until now. He had not been ruined by scandal. He had simply slipped to a fresh stage, just as he had before. "He never loved you," I said. "You were another episode." She looked up, tears streaking. "How did you get this?" "I hired a professional," I said. "Gavin has done this in 3 cities. Ambitious targets, big promises. Disappears when the math gets hard." People near us stood in breathless silence. Phones held steady, light blinking. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because you did it to me in the open," I said. "The difference is that I am telling the truth." I turned back to the square. "Remember this day," I said, voice carrying across the rain. "Remember what happens when you try to ruin someone who has done nothing but love you. Remember what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had finally called the police, understandably, considering a knife had flashed. I was not worried. The recordings had played in public. Hundreds had watched Dave and Tom attack first. Marcus had produced a blade on a crowded square. There were witnesses stacked to the tree line. I walked to my truck while the crowd peeled back like a tide. I caught my reflection in the rear view. A smile tugged at my mouth for the first time in months. The quiet handyman was gone. In his place stood someone tempered and sharp, someone who would not be broken or shamed, someone who answers fire with water and then with stone.